step in a journey to really build the world's most important arena in a downtown community. This will be the largest investment made in an existing arena in the country. It's going to be messy. It's going to be long and hard, 3 years of deconstruction and then construction. But we're up for that task. When we won the Stanley Cup, one of our themes was, it's worth the wait, and that's how I feel will happen with this investment that the city and we're making. And what I'm most happy about, and we have Nina and Monica here side by side, is that we're in it together with the city. What I'm most pleased with is that we meet with the Metro head, and what can we do to make this a great coming into the city, going to other parts of the city, leaving the city, making this a destination. Working with the police chief, working with all the people that are concerned with safety and security and cleanliness. I mean, the building around here in the neighborhood right now here looks absolutely spectacular. People who have come for the opening, some people came from LA and they said, wow, this is spectacular. What's the problem? I said, well, there is no problem. It is. It's clean, it's safe, it's built, businesses are coming back in. And I think our staying in the city has given everyone that sense of confidence that DC can come back and downtown DC can come back. Our priorities have to start with our players and their families. We have to have great teams. So we have great teams, we'll make the playoffs, we can compete for championships. The first year's work will all be done downstairs in the event level. We get more room by coming into the Gallery Place area, very important for us. Training, film rooms, better kitchens. The athletes today are being compensated at such a high rate that getting the players on the court mentally and physically ready becomes a real important part of our equation. Then the following years will be for our fans. I think the fans have to feel that they're getting more than just coming to the game. What's on trend around the leagues are entertainment districts. We will be able to have a lot more entertainment, dining options, social gathering places in the building for our fans. And then the city and DC and the small businesses around, they'll basically be creating a downtown entertainment district, and we'll be able to bring 3 million people in, and they'll support those businesses. That's very important to us. It's very important to the city. It gives life, if you will, before and after each of the games. We're very unique in that we have so many teams and events in this building, one of the busiest buildings in the country. And that's where it'll be tough for us. We're going to have to close during the summer. I've already had questions about women's basketball and the Mystics. As you know, we're long-term believers in women's basketball and the Washington Mystics. We're the second longest tenured owners. We have a great facility in Ward 8, St. Elizabeth's, but it's too small for many of our games, and I would expect over time we'll outgrow that. But right now, we will play our games there. You saw our last game of the season. We had the most attendance of any WNBA game in history. Next summer, the summer after, we'll have to find a new location for that to play. We've already started that process, but it'll be worth the wait. That's how I look at it. Yes, we'll have a short-term issue, but when you look at the big picture, we should be best situated because the games that have 4,000 or 5,000 fans will have a place for them. And then when we can fill up 20,000, 21,000 people, we'll be able to do it here, but it's going to take a couple of seasons. Our employees obviously are very important to us. We're able to reclaim a lot of space. We'll soon have 1,000 full-time employees atop of the thousands and thousands of union employees and part-time employees, 4,000 or 5,000. And now we'll be able to put them all in the same space, be very, very hip, very nice working space. Our employees work 5 days a week here at the office. It's very important that we're in the hospitality business. We have to have a community feel, if you will, for our employees, especially for them to be advocates for downtown and the building. And they take Metro, and they need parking, and so they're our best focus group, if you will. And then finally will be, how do we fit in the downtown rejuvenation? And we want to be a great, great neighbor, not just for the business, but kind of for the iconography of downtown. And so we'll work very closely with the city and all the planning commissions and all the neighbors and the Smithsonian to make sure that what we're doing fits in with the mindset and the gestalt, if you will, of the neighborhood. I walked through the Smithsonian Portrait Gallery around the corner the other day, and this is nicer. This tells a better story. And so your move, Smithsonian, let's uplift. Okay, so I'll turn it over to some questions.
Hey, Mr. Leonsis, it's pretty well documented that this was not your first option, but this is where we're here now. One of the reasons you looked at other options is because you wanted to totally revamp the fan experience, and there's certain things you just can't do under a renovation. Changing the seating bowl arrangement is one example. So the question is, how confident are you that this is going to feel like an entirely different experience for fans rather than just a makeover?
Well, I just gave you a firsthand story, right? I'll let you go through the back door here of the Avita hair salon and be reminded of what that looked like versus what this looks like. This is new. I've inspired everyone. Ezra Pound, a great thinker, philosopher in the 60s, said, make it new. I'm not looking at this as a rehab. We're looking at this for $800 million, and I'm sure we'll be putting more money in. Remember, we just spent $200 million in the last couple of years. It's going to be $1 billion. Well, that's what a new arena costs. Make it new. And so, the only thing that we've lacked here is elbow room, and we were able to claim 300,000 square feet. We don't have the room outside, but our neighbors do. So they're going to have to make 7th Street, 6th Street. I looked at 6th Street, the new building that just went up there. It's spectacular. And so we're going to have to be creative and collaborative with the community to give it that feel of, oh, have you seen what they've built in Washington, D.C.? Building has to last 25 years. For $1 billion, it should have that good feel. I mean, this building still feels inside to the fans like it's a world-class arena. But, every day we go, geez, we wish this was wider. We wish we had more kitchens. We wish we had more social meeting areas. And so the architects, all of the people that we've been working with have taken that into consideration. And we're going to be very demanding because we have to innovate. We have to find new materials. We have to find new ways to do things. And we also have to do best practices. I mean, we've been joking and laughing about plumbing has become like the new defining differentiation. And so, we'll have more bathrooms. But the fan side of it is we don't want anyone having to wait in line and miss part of a period, a part of a second half. And so, we will do a lot of science around what are the wait times, how many toilets do you need, what kind of plumbing do you need, and it all goes into it. But there's so many arenas around the world that you can take the cues from. And so, our goal would be in 3 years that when it opens, we would have the best new in-city arena. Steve Ballmer's built the world-class place, but it's far away from the city, right? And so there's always these trade-offs that you make. At the end of the day, I think we've ended up in the best place.
Mr. Leonsis, I'm Janae with Axis. Can you talk about why the practice arena or the practice facility wasn't able to fit, and where does the search for that go now in DC?
It didn't fit because what the demands are for today and 5 years from now on practice facilities, there's this arms race, so we need more space. And so we said, rather than try to cram it here, let's catch our breath, let's work with the city, let's find, I'm sure there's another place within the city that we can be able to find and build a world-class practice facility, which is very important for the overall health of the franchise because it's where the players spend most of their time, right? The Caps play in Boston, practice facility and offices are there. Our coach during the preseason had some pregame skates and practices here. And it was funny listening to them that our players only come here to play. They have locker rooms, they have classrooms, they have all their workout facilities, everything is there. And the reason that they had the space was very creative use of a parking lot. We built the world's highest practice facility and office space. So you can be creative. Nina's a very can-do person. Monica's been negotiating, knows every nook and cranny of the building and the teams. So I have confidence that we can take each deal on its own, close it and say, okay, now what do we have to do for the practice facility? What do we have to do for traffic mitigation? How are we going to sync the lights? I have a 30-year quest to sync the lights, just so we know.
Ms. Leonsis? Hi, over here. Hi. May I make a pun? You're saying that this is better than the Smithsonian, so it's the cut above, since it used to be an old
Cut above,
Say
yes. There you
that
go.
it's a cut above other art galleries, particularly the portrait gallery.
I think as you walk through this, it's the Smithsonian was created to collect things, not to tell a story. And in the new world, especially to reach young people, you use images. Instagram is all about photos. Next generation AI combs through everything that's visual to tell a story. And this, as you walk in the front door, starts with Eisenhower and goes all the way through the presidents, but their families, both in formal and informal settings. And then you get into social justice with Martin Luther King. This man was very close with John Lewis and with Martin Luther King, and Selma, Alabama, Mississippi, was tear gassed, was arrested, was beaten. It's an amazing history when you sit with him and talk to him. He was with Robert Kennedy. You go down and see those photos. He was atop of Robert Kennedy when he was assassinated. He was in Somalia in the mornings when mothers would come out with their dying children. I mean, the man has seen unbelievable history. He came right behind us on the Pan Am flight with the Beatles. He then took them to the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. And then the Beatles' first concert was at REI Arena. He then took them to Miami to be on the second Ed Sullivan show. And Sonny Liston and Cassius Clay were fighting. And John Lennon said, I want to meet Sonny Liston. And Sonny Liston said, I don't know who the Beatles are. I have zero interest in meeting them. So they called Cassius Clay. And he said, bring him in. And that's the photo. That's been in my office for the last 10 years, that photo right there. And Cassius Clay fell in love with him. And then he went to Maine with Cassius Clay. And after that fight, the Beatles, the four Beatles, and Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali became the 5 most important, most recognized personalities on the planet. And so to live that kind of life with the Beatles and Clay and Martin Luther King, he took the open casket photo of Martin Luther King. I hope you'll, it's reverent. He was trusted. You go back, you'll see all of the Godfather photos and Marlon Brando. So yes, we are telling a story about Washington, D.C. and why this is the most important city on the planet. And I think we're on trend, and I'm most interested in getting the schools, the young people to come into the city, take Metro, through DC Cap, we'll do some scholarship. We have college signing day at the building, just to get them to understand our shared history. And we should embrace that and celebrate that. And I think this does it. And I think people will come in here and never know that it once was a dress shop and a haircutting salon. I used to buy my shampoos here, by the way. But
Do you have a favorite genre of these photographs, the historic ones, the sports, anything like that?
I think the room right downstairs that tells, one of the most meaningful days we had here was Willie O'Ree was the first black hockey player, and John Lewis, and they knew each other, and they were together, and they dropped the puck together, and there's that whole part of our history. And Martin Luther King, he was man at peace in a time of war during the Vietnam era, but he was human, and we saw him as being peaceful, but Harry saw him in his full 360-degree self. He's the only picture of Martin Luther King in anger is right downstairs. He did not want to show that part of himself because he knew that would be perceived negatively by the media. Right? He didn't want to be Malcolm X, but he obviously was angry. And so that area downstairs and the whole Bobby Kennedy story was solemn. The reason we're not playing music, my wife, we wanted to play Beatles music, and my wife said, you can't. I mean, you walk through that area, it's very, very telling. We've got royalty here. There's an unbelievable last shot of a king who abdicated a crown. I encourage you all to look at it. And he took 1,000 photos of the queen and the royal family, and the king abdicates the throne. He marries a American divorcee. And there's a photo of the king, and I'll let you write the caption of what he's thinking.
Ted, sir, what's the biggest difference between you owning the Capital One Arena and the city owning the Capital One Arena?
I think, the way the deal was always written, right? If we left, the city was going to get the building. And this was a way for us to, I think, kind of cement the partnership. It's the same deal, really, that the Nationals have. It's the same deal that most teams have with the city, in that the city, they usually build the building. In our case, we built and owned the building. And so this was a way to say, if we're going to spend $800 million, we want all of the dollars going into it. We've renamed our investment. It's a tenant improvement. It's probably the biggest tenant improvement ever paid, right? I mean, I'm going to start to get some blowback from people saying, well, if they own the building, why are you putting so much money into it? And so I view this as a very powerful partnership with the city, but it's not just with the mayor and the city council. And I've made note of the challenge that we continue to have by not being treated with respect, because we're not a state. right? Our mayor has to run this city. You know, I talked to the mayor the other day, and she says, "You'll have to excuse me, I'm planning and working on the inauguration," right? And you go, what other mayor has to worry about things like that, right? But it's the federal government. That street right there, 7th Street, that's a federal highway. That's an evacuation route. So the mayor, Nina, can talk to us with conviction about F Street. But whenever you talk about 7th Street, there's a little bit more coordination that goes into place. And so I think this is a good pivot. I think it puts all of the dollars back into the building. And it's 25 years with a bunch of options for future years. I don't think I personally will be concerned with future years unless I'm going to live into my hundreds, which could be. I'm very healthy, but I don't think I'm going to get to my hundreds to be worrying about negotiating extensions.
Ted, could I ask you and the Deputy Mayor to both comment on the way the deal is structured with the sale is to allow you and your partners to avoid paying any taxes on the $515 million. Some people will look at that and think that that's, you know, a sweetheart deal for a rich franchise owner, team owner. What do you say to residents, both you and the Deputy Mayor, about that, the way that this is set up to help you avoid those taxes?
You mean personal taxes?
Well, according to your staff, it's hundreds of millions of dollars of taxes for you and your partners and for Monumental that you would have had to pay on the $515 million had it been structured differently.
Exactly.
Right, so how do you defend that? I mean, what would you say?
I
to
don't
the
have to,
taxpayers for not
we
getting
shouldn't
such a
have to
deal?
defend it. It's, all the money is going into the building as opposed to paying taxes. Isn't that strategically like the right thing to do?
I guess some might say, though, that if you never believe that the taxpayer-funded money goes to help an arena and, you know, somebody like yourself in the first place, then you might not see it that way.
Well, if the city had built the building originally, let's take a look at Baltimore. There was just $1.2 billion of checks basically given to the Orioles and the Ravens to upgrade the facility. Is that, you believe that? That's factually correct. It didn't go to David Rubenstein or Steve Bisciotti. It went to the organization to be spent on the buildings. Okay? The Nationals, because the city built the building originally, any dollars that go into the rehab of the building doesn't go to the learners personally, and they pay taxes on it. It goes to new screens, new toilets, so we just really right-sized that kind of arrangement so that it wasn't a round trip, if you will. The money comes to us personally, and then we give the money back. Right? That's all it was. And I
Sure. This is the deal that was always contemplated. When Mayor Bowser and the DC Council approved a $550 million improvements to the Capital One Arena, we anticipated, and we are now effectuating the transaction that allows $515 million to be invested into modernizing, transforming, and expanding the Capital One Arena. This is the best structure to effectuate that. It's called a sale-leaseback, very common transaction. And as Mr. Leonsis said, it is what enables an efficient use of public money to be fully reinvested in this project as opposed to going to other uses.
Mr. Leonsis, you mentioned that.
And by the way, I wouldn't have done the deal, I said, because Mark Seagraves will say, how will you justify taking the money? I don't want the money. I want the money to go into the building, and the city owns the building right now.
You mentioned that you're actively looking for a place that the Mystics might play some of their games that during the summer when you're closed here.
Correct.
Would sell out at the small arena. Are you looking only at DC venues, or is it possible that those games would go outside of DC?
we'll have to have a negotiation. We'll have to look at what all the options are. And then I think the city will look at what's the financial best thing for the taxpayers, right? If we're paying taxes, if you will, and generating revenues, the city will have to make a self-evident experience. But right now, there's so much still to go through, all of these negotiations on several deals, that while it's a priority, it's not priority one right now. We really haven't started that process of RFPs and going into the market on what are we going to do next July for WNBA game.
Deputy Mayor, Ian Development's one of the biggest developers in this area. Were they part of the overall sale or the deal at all? Or did you have any financial gain in the project?
I'm sorry, which?
Ian Development?
They were not a part of this transaction at all. This is a public-private partnership between the District of Columbia and Monumental Sports and Entertainment.
Nina, could you speak at all to the efforts moving forward to work with the community on what this expansion is going to look like, and how are you considering the other businesses and how they'll be impacted, including by the renovations?
Well, we're very fortunate in that the mayor pulled together a Gallery Place task force that as soon as Monumental Sports and Mayor Bowser came to an agreement that the teams are going to stay here, we pivoted and really focused on how to make the Gallery Place Chinatown neighborhood a really vibrant cornerstone of downtown. It's like a bookend to downtown. Downtown's a long and a big place, and this is an incredibly important epicenter to downtown. And so we've worked through the Gallery Place Chinatown Task Force with over 1,000 stakeholders and constituents already to date. And I know that Monumental Sports, as soon as this deal gets consummated in the form of legislation that's approved, already has been in conversation with the local community and businesses, and will continue to do that so that we can collectively together create a stadium and an entertainment area that is worthy of the future of downtown DC, that is about our future of entertainment epicenter where people from all over the region, from all over the country, from all over the globe can really understand what DC has to offer. We are the federal city on one hand, but we're also a place that people live, where businesses thrive, and that entire ecosystem that really includes entertainment and sports, revolves around. And so the work has just begun.
Ted, is it fair to say that you envision more along the lines of an MSG transformation of your building as opposed to a really nice cosmetic kind of?
Oh, I've walked through, I understand Madison Square Garden. I think this will be better. I think there'll be much more noticeable signs of change. And that's very important to me. Just doing a paint job. You can look at Philadelphia. They just spent $400 million. And I would say it's not as ecumenical on the investment for what are we doing for the players, what are we doing for the employees, what are we doing for the fans, what are we doing for the community. And so this will be a really, really major transformation. It'll look different on the outside. It'll look and feel different on the inside. The parking will be different. The entrances will be different. I mean, that's the key thing on making it new. And we want players from other teams to come. I don't want them working out in front of the elevator on the side because there's no room, right? We want people, just like we have in the situation in Virginia with the Caps, right? Where we have the Olympic trials come and the players see our training facility and then they all go, man, that was great, right? So that all goes into the equation of making something a destination. And so we're going to have a lot of impact on the changes here.
WNBA season starts in
May.
mid to late May. Is
Yeah.
there any way you could retrofit your 4 games to fall before?
Well, I mean, we'll work with the leagues. What if the Caps go on a deep playoff run? I'm not going to shut down, right? And I don't think the Wizards are going on a deep playoff run next year. And so again, I can't, this isn't fast food service. If you have a belief and a point of view and a strategy, it takes time. This is going to be pardon our dust for a long time, and there's going to be a lot of surprises thrown up our way. Trust me, there's been a lot of surprises already. And so what do? Do you put pencils down and walk away? Do you say, okay, let's understand the issue. How do we work around it? Has to be compromise. The leagues have to compromise. The city has to compromise. We have to compromise. The only people so far who don't compromise are the agents. And we can get through it. And, you know, the leagues are so durable. The teams are so durable. And 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, if that's what it takes, we'll look back at it and think, oh, that was nothing. And you see that all the time with rebuilding teams. You go, oh, they didn't make the playoffs for 12 years. Yeah, but they're great now, right? That's the payoff. That's what we have to look at with the building. It's going to be funky. But when it's done, everyone's going to say, this was fantastic. It was worth the wait. It was worth the investment. And then we'll have 25 years under a new lease, and, you know, the teams will be better. The young guys, young players will be coming into their own. The WNBA will be more established. You know, 3 years from now seems like a short period of time.
What's your current assessment of the safety and security around the arena? I know there's been a lot
Dramatically improved.
And what have you noticed? Has it, you know, the offer sheet had a requirement of a certain number of officers. That's not necessarily written out in what's proposed here. What has gotten better in your mind, and what gives you confidence that fans will feel safe for 25 years, maybe more?
Well, it was palatable and noticeable during the playoffs. And I would say that that's probably the feeling of we're in it together that made me feel most comfortable with, let's go, let's keep pushing to get this done. In fact, I had one conversation with the mayor the other day, and she said, Ted, I'm not doing this for you. These are our people coming into your building. These are tourists coming into the building. Yes, I'll work on the services agreement for you, but at the end of the day, it's for the taxpayers, and it's for people from Virginia and Maryland, or who come and visit the mall, the 30 million tourists who come here and spend money with her small businesses. And so, you know, I think there's been this amazing pivot, if you will, that we're in it together, that this building as a portal, as a front door for downtown DC is really important. And the traffic mitigation, incredibly important. The cleaning the streets, incredibly important. We clean the windows here. We had someone come in and clean the windows, and everyone went, wow, it looks like a different building. Yeah, it does. You clean the windows, and the sun's out, and all of a sudden it looks new. And so I think we're going to have a new day. I just finished reading a biography of Enzo Ferrari. And, you know, he was all about the machine. He was all about the performance. He was all about winning. And some friends have heard me use this metaphor before, but the first thing he did on the design of his car was he ripped off the rearview mirror. He said, I don't care what's behind us. I only care that we're racing towards the finish line. That's what we have to do here, okay? I don't want to talk anymore about, well, what if, and what if you could have. It's like, we're here right now, and new season start Friday for the Wizards. Cap season is in full swing. Mystic WNBA season is over. You know, we care right now about the city council. This has been presented to the city council. They have their own process. But there's a lot of other things we'll be doing in coordination with lots of other groups in the city to get this done.
The term sheet
Sorry,
mentions RFK
Hey, Eric,
as a possible
we're gonna just do
location.
one-on-ones, because I think both the mayor.
As long as I
I'll let.
We were able to meet with the restaurant owners and talk through what it's like to have 90 semis come in at midnight and back down the street into the garage. And we've worked out a compromise where the streetery can exist, it's just gonna be pushed down the block a little bit. And we're really excited. This is a restaurant we partner in the building with. They provide amazing pizzas and they bring them into the building for our fans.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, go enjoy, walk around. That's why you were supposed to be here originally. Go see the art.